Thank you, family, for your unwavering support. Please subscribe, leave a like, and share this video with your friends and loved ones. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you'll never miss any of my future videos. Thank you so much for being part of our journey. Now, let's dive into the final part of the story. Bolin wasted no time after the market ambush. Within hours, Marina, Hao Chao, and Ming were whisked away to an impenetrable safe house on the outskirts of the city. The estate was fortified with state-of-the-art surveillance systems, hidden panic rooms, and a round-the-clock security team hand-picked by Ming. "Nothing gets in or out without our say," Ming assured Bolin as they walked through the heavily secured grounds. Marina held Hao Chao close, her eyes scanning the high fences and guards patrolling the perimeter. "It feels more like a prison than a home," she said quietly, her voice tinged with frustration. Bolin turned to her, his face a mask of determination. "It's temporary. Until we know who's behind this and stop them, I need to know you're both safe." Marina shook her head, her voice rising. "Safe? Locked away while you're out there fighting alone? Bolin, this isn't a life. I won't let you shut me out." The safe house was quiet, save for the faint hum of the surveillance systems. Marina stood near the window, staring at the high fences that loomed in the distance. Hao Chao slept peacefully in his crib nearby, but her mind was far from calm. She could feel the tension radiating from Bolin, who had been pacing the room for the past hour. Finally, she broke the silence. "What is it, Bolin? You've been restless ever since we arrived here." Bolin froze mid-step, his shoulders stiffening. He turned to face her, his jaw tight. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, his voice low but steady. "Something I should have told you sooner." Marina's heart sank. She placed the book she'd been holding on the table and turned to face him fully. "What is it?" Bolin hesitated, his hands clenching at his sides. He had faced assassins, betrayals, and the Shadow Circle's relentless attacks, but this moment felt heavier than all of them. He finally met Marina's gaze. "I married Leon," he said, his words measured but laced with regret. "It was part of the plan to reclaim the Empire." Marina blinked, her breath catching in her throat. For a moment, she wasn't sure she'd heard him correctly. "You... what?" Bolin stepped closer, his expression pleading. "I didn't want to, but it was the only way to stop the Shadow Circle from tightening their grip on what's rightfully mine, on what my parents built." Marina's hands trembled, but her voice remained steady. "Explain." Bolin took a deep breath, his voice softening. "After my father's death, the Shadow Circle moved quickly. They embedded themselves deeper into the Empire, buying out shares and solidifying alliances. Leon's father, Jiwan, was one of the most powerful figures left. Marrying his daughter was the only way to gain his trust and get access to his inner circle." Marina's eyes narrowed. "So you married her to play a part?" "Yes," Bolin said firmly. "It was a calculated move. I never loved her, Marina. It was always a means to an end." Marina crossed her arms, her voice rising. "And what about me? About Hao Chao? Did you think I wouldn't find out? Or were you planning to keep me in the dark forever?" "I was trying to protect you," Bolin shot back, his voice cracking with emotion. "If the Shadow Circle knew about you or the baby, they would have used you against me. Marrying Leon was the only way to draw their attention away from you." Marina took a step back, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "You married another woman, Bolin. Do you have any idea how that feels? To know the man I love is out there pretending to be someone else's husband?" Bolin reached for her hands, his touch tentative. "It was never real, Marina. It was always you. Everything I've done, every sacrifice I've made, has been for you and Hao Chao." Marina pulled her hands away, shaking her head. "You can't use us as an excuse for this. You should have told me." "I know," Bolin admitted, his voice heavy with guilt. "And I'm sorry. I thought I could shoulder it alone, but keeping this from you has only made things worse." Marina took a deep breath, forcing herself to steady her emotions. "Bolin, I understand why you did it. I understand the stakes, but you need to understand something too. I'm not a damsel you need to hide away. I'm your partner. If we're going to face this together, there can't be secrets between us." Bolin nodded, his eyes filled with a mixture of relief and admiration. "You're right. I should have trusted you with the truth. From now on, no more secrets." Marina stepped closer, her voice firm but soft. "This marriage, it has to end, Bolin. When this is over, when you've reclaimed what's yours, you end it. Do you hear me?" Bolin placed a hand over his heart. "I promise. When this is over, you, me, and Hao Chao will start fresh. No more lies, no more sacrifices." Marina sighed, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "I need time, Bolin, to process all of this." "I'll give you all the time you need," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "Just don't forget that I love you. I always have, and I always will." Marina nodded, though the pain in her chest lingered. "Then prove it, not just with words, but with actions." Bolin nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. "I will. For you. For us." As they stood in the quiet room, the tension between them remained, but so did the promise of healing. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time in a long while, they were on the same side. Days passed, and while the safe house provided protection, the isolation began to take its toll on Marina. She spent her hours caring for Hao Chao and pacing the halls, her mind racing with questions. Each time Bolin left to meet with Ming or strategize with his allies, she felt the distance between them grow. One evening, after Hao Chao had fallen asleep, Marina confronted Bolin in their shared room. "You can't keep doing this," she said, her tone firm, "hiding us away like some secret you're ashamed of." Bolin's expression hardened. "This isn't about shame. It's about keeping you alive." "And what about you?" she countered, stepping closer. "Every time you walk out that door, you're risking your life. Do you think I can just sit here and wait, not knowing if you'll come back?" "You think I want this?" Bolin snapped, his voice breaking with emotion. "You think I don't hate every second I spend away from you and Hao Chao? But this is the only way to keep you safe." Marina's eyes softened, but her resolve remained. "Then let me help. Train me, Bolin. Teach me how to protect myself and our son. I'm not asking to fight your battles, but I can't stand by and do nothing." Ming interrupted their heated discussion with a new strategy. "We need to misdirect the enemy," he said, laying a map on the table. "If they think Marina and Hao Chao are somewhere else, they'll shift their focus." Marina frowned. "You want to stage a public appearance? That sounds like painting a target on my back." "It's a calculated risk," Ming explained. "We'll use decoys, trained operatives who can pass as you and Hao Chao from a distance. The goal is to keep the enemy's attention while the real you stays under the radar." Bolin was immediately on edge. "It's too dangerous. If they catch on—" "They won't," Ming interrupted. "I'll handle it personally. The decoys will appear in a highly visible location, and we'll control every aspect of the environment. It buys us time to investigate." Marina looked at Bolin, her voice steady. "Let him try. If it helps protect Hao Chao, I'll do whatever it takes." True to her word, Marina threw herself into learning self-defense. Under Ming's guidance, she trained in basic combat techniques, situational awareness, and how to use concealed weapons. During one grueling session, Marina struggled to maintain her footing after Ming demonstrated a defensive move. Frustration flickered in her eyes as she wiped the sweat from her brow. "I'm not cut out for this," she muttered. "You're stronger than you think," Ming said, his voice calm but firm. This isn't just about strength. It's about protecting what matters most. Marina glanced at Hao Chao, who played on a blanket nearby under the watchful eye of a guard. Her expression hardened with resolve. Then let's go again. Bolin watched from a distance, a mix of pride and guilt warring within him. Seeing Marina's determination reminded him why he was fighting, but it also deepened his fear of losing her. Weeks later, the decoy plan was put into action. The operatives posed as Marina and Hao Chao, making a public appearance at a bustling park in the heart of the city. The enemy took the bait, their movements tracked by Bolin and Ming's team from a secure vantage point. Meanwhile, back at the safe house, Marina prepared herself for what lay ahead. She had grown stronger, more confident, and more resolute. When Bolin returned that night, she met him at the door, her expression unyielding. "Whatever happens next, we face it together," she said, her voice steady. "I won't let you carry this burden alone." Bolin nodded, his chest tightening with emotion. "Together," he agreed, pulling her into a tight embrace. The decoy plan was a success, buying Bolin and his team time to uncover more about the enemy. But the enemy's persistence only grew, and Bolin knew the reprieve wouldn't last forever. Marina's involvement added both strength and risk to their mission, forcing Bolin to confront the delicate balance between protecting his family and empowering them. As the next phase of their fight loomed, one thing was certain: the enemy wasn't finished, and neither were they. It began subtly, almost innocuously. Bolin's assistant handed him a package late one evening, delivered without a return address. The plain envelope seemed unassuming, but when Bolin opened it, his blood ran cold. Inside was a single photograph of Marina and Hao Chao, taken just days earlier at the safe house. Accompanying it was a chilling message, written in bold, precise handwriting. "You took everything from him. Now, I'll take everything from you." Bolin's grip tightened on the photo as rage bubbled beneath his calm facade. He immediately called Ming, his voice low but sharp. "They know where Marina is." Within hours, the safe house was evacuated. Marina and Hao Chao moved to an even more secretive location. But the message was clear. The enemy wasn't playing by the old rules. This wasn't about empire alone. This was personal. Over the next few weeks, Bolin's operations began to unravel in small but deliberate ways. A shipment meant to stabilize a struggling division disappeared without a trace. Key meetings with investors were sabotaged by false intel. A vital contract was leaked to a competitor, costing Bolin millions in damages. At first, it seemed like a string of bad luck, but Ming, ever the strategist, noticed the pattern. Sitting in Bolin's office late one night, he laid out the evidence. "They're inside," Ming said, pointing to a web of connections on the board. "Whoever this is, they've been infiltrating your operations for months, maybe longer." Bolin's jaw tightened as he studied the chart. "They're organized, systematic. This isn't the work of one person." Ming nodded. "It's not. But someone is leading them. Someone who knows exactly how to dismantle what you've built." The first glimpse of the new enemy came during a routine board meeting. Bolin's director of logistics, a quiet, unassuming man named Liang Cheng, stood to deliver his report. As he spoke, Bolin's instincts flared. Liang's words were too polished, his demeanor too rehearsed. After the meeting, Ming confronted Liang in a darkened hallway. "You're hiding something," he said, his voice low but threatening. "What is it?" Liang hesitated, then smirked. "You think you've won, don't you? Taking down Ziyuan, reclaiming your empire? But you missed something. Someone." Ming's eyes narrowed. "Who?" Liang leaned closer, his voice a whisper. "Lin Sui. She's coming for you, and there's nothing you can do to stop her." Before Ming could press further, Liang produced a concealed blade and plunged it into his own chest, collapsing to the floor before Ming could stop him. His dying smirk sent a chill down Ming's spine. Lin Shui was a name Bolin recognized instantly. She had been one of Jiwan's most trusted advisors, a brilliant strategist who had disappeared after the coup. She was rumored to be ruthless, willing to do whatever it took to achieve her goals. And now she had resurfaced, her sights set on destroying everything Bolin had rebuilt. Ming, recovering from the shock of Liang's suicide, provided the intel he'd gathered on her. "She's smarter than Jiwan ever was," he said grimly, "and more dangerous. She doesn't just want power, she wants vengeance." Bolin stared at the dossier in his hands, a photograph of Lin Shui clipped to the top. Her sharp features and cold eyes seemed to pierce through the page. "Why is she targeting Marina and Hao Chao?" "Because they're your weakness," Ming replied. "She knows she can't outmaneuver you in business, but if she destabilizes you personally, the rest will fall apart." Lin Shu's attacks escalated. A private video of Bolin with Marina and Hao Chao was leaked to the media, sparking a frenzy of speculation about Bolin's personal life. Rivals began questioning his ability to lead, framing him as a man distracted by his family while his empire crumbled. Bolin held a press conference to address the rumors, but even as he spoke, Lin Shu's influence was evident. Anonymous sources leaked documents accusing Bolin of financial misconduct, all carefully fabricated to sow doubt and confusion. "She's not just dismantling your empire," Ming said during a late-night strategy session. "She's dismantling you." The pieces finally clicked during an interrogation of one of Lin Shu's operatives. The man, bruised and defiant, spat the truth at Bolin and Ming. "Jiwan was like a father to her," the man sneered. "And you killed him. You didn't just take his empire, you took her family." Bolin's expression darkened. "Jiwan destroyed my family first. And now she's returning the favor," the operative said, before Ming silenced him with a cold glare. Bolin, Ming, and Marina devised a plan to counter Lin Shui's assault. Bolin's public image was restructured, presenting him as a devoted family man, fighting to protect both his loved ones and his empire. Marina became a visible ally, giving interviews and making public appearances that humanized Bolin's struggle. Behind the scenes, Ming worked tirelessly to root out Lin Shui's infiltrators, dismantling her network piece by piece. But Lin Shui wasn't easily cornered. Each victory felt hollow, as Lin always seemed to be one step ahead. One night, Bolin received a package at his office. Inside was a single item, a recording of Hao Chao laughing, the sound bright and innocent. But the accompanying note was anything but comforting. "You can protect him now, but for how long?" Bolin's hand shook as he crumpled the note. "She's playing games," he said through gritted teeth. Ming stepped forward, his face grim. "This isn't a game. This is war." Marina sat in the corner of the safe house's library, the dim light casting shadows across the bookshelves. Hao Chao slept soundly in a bassinet nearby, but Marina was wide awake, her mind racing. For months, she had watched Bolin and Ming orchestrate their moves against Jiwan, and now Lin Shui. She had stayed silent, trusting them to protect her and their son. But the recent threats, her near capture, and the message targeting Hao Chao had changed everything. When Bolin entered the room, she rose to meet him, her expression resolute. "I can't sit by anymore," she said, her voice steady but firm. "I want to help." Bolin hesitated, his eyes flickering to the bassinet. "Marina, it's too dangerous. My world, our world, doesn't work like that." "Your world," she shot back, her tone sharpening, "is my world now. And if you think I'll stay in the shadows while our son's life is at risk, you don't know me as well as you think." Bolin sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's not about what I want, Marina. It's about keeping you and Hao Chao safe." And the best way to keep us safe, she said, stepping closer, is for me to be a part of this. I know how to build trust, how to make connections. Let me help you. Marina began attending Boland's strategy meetings, initially as an observer but quickly proving her worth. During one tense discussion about stabilizing Boland's finances, Marina spoke up. "Why are you focusing so much on local assets?" she asked, her calm tone cutting through the tension. "Your empire isn't confined to China. Use your global reach. Lagos, for example. It's still recovering from the economic fallout of Zhuan's dealings. People there are desperate for stability. You could offer them that and gain allies in return." The room fell silent as Boland and Ming exchanged glances. "She's right," Ming admitted reluctantly. "We've been too focused on Lin Shu's local operations. Expanding our alliances globally could give us an edge." Boland nodded, a hint of pride in his gaze. "Marina, you've just opened a door we didn't see. Let's move on it." Marina reached out to her old contacts in Lagos, business leaders, community organizers, and diplomats who had once admired Boland's work in the region. Her background in Lagos gave her a unique perspective, allowing her to broker alliances that Boland's team couldn't have accessed on their own. One particularly pivotal meeting took place over a secure video call. Marina negotiated with an influential Lagos tycoon, convincing him to reinvest in Boland's revitalized empire. "You're asking me to trust a man whose family's name has been dragged through the mud," the tycoon said, his voice skeptical. Marina leaned forward, her tone unwavering. "I'm asking you to trust me. Boland isn't just rebuilding an empire. He's rebuilding lives, and I'm living proof of that. Partner with us, and you'll see the difference firsthand." By the end of the call, the tycoon had agreed to a substantial investment, giving Boland's empire a much-needed boost. As Marina became more involved, she began identifying weaknesses in Boland's organization that even Ming had overlooked. During a review of their security protocols, she pointed out a flaw in their digital defenses. "This encryption method is outdated," she said, highlighting a specific vulnerability. "If I can spot it, Lin Shu's people certainly can." Ming bristled at first. "Our tech team has assured us—" "They missed it," Marina interrupted, her tone firm but respectful. "Trust me on this. I've seen systems like this breached before." Boland sided with Marina, ordering an immediate overhaul of their digital security. The move paid off weeks later when an attempted cyber attack on their systems was thwarted thanks to the updated protocols. "You saved us," Boland said to Marina afterward, his voice filled with gratitude. "Again." Marina smiled softly. "We're a team, Boland. That's how it should be." Marina's involvement in Boland's world didn't just strengthen his empire, it also deepened their bond. Late at night, after long days of strategizing and planning, they would sit together, sharing quiet moments that reminded them of why they were fighting. One night, as they stood on the balcony overlooking the city, Boland took Marina's hand. "You amaze me," he said, his voice low. "You've stepped into a world that should have broken you, and instead, you've made it stronger." Marina turned to him, her eyes glistening. "I've had a good reason to stay strong. Two, actually." Boland smiled, pulling her into his arms. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'll never have to find out," she whispered. With Marina's growing influence and strategic insight, Boland's empire began to stabilize. But Lin Shu wasn't idle. The enemy's attacks grew more aggressive, forcing Boland and Marina to adapt constantly. Marina insisted on being by Boland's side, even during the most dangerous moments. "If we're going to win this," she told him, "we do it together." And so they did. Boland, Ming, and Marina became an unstoppable team, each bringing their unique strengths to the fight. But as the stakes rose, so did the risks, and the realization that their next move could be their last. The night was eerily quiet at the safe house. Bolin sat at his desk, poring over intelligence reports while Ming reviewed security footage on a nearby monitor. Marina had just put Hao Chao to bed, the baby's soft breathing a soothing reminder of what they were fighting for. "I don't like this silence," Ming muttered, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the cameras. "It's too quiet." Bolin glanced up. "You think they're coming?" Ming's reply was grim. "It's not a matter of if, it's when." Just after midnight, the power cut out. The entire estate plunged into darkness, the hum of electricity replaced by an unsettling silence. Bolin was immediately on his feet, his hand reaching for the firearm hidden in his desk. "Ming," Bolin said sharply, his voice low but urgent. Ming was already moving, switching to a backup system on his tablet. "They've hacked the grid. Internal systems are compromised." Before they could act further, an explosion rocked the perimeter. The ground trembled as alarms blared to life, red emergency lights flickering in the hallways. "Marina!" Bolin shouted, bolting toward the living quarters. Armed intruders stormed the compound, their movements coordinated and precise. They wore tactical gear, their faces obscured by masks. Ming fired off rapid orders to the security team through his earpiece while engaging the first wave of attackers in a brutal firefight. Bolin reached the family quarters to find Marina clutching Hao Chao, her eyes wide but resolute. "They're inside," he said, breathless. "We need to move." Marina didn't hesitate. "What's the plan?" "There's a panic room down the hall," Bolin replied. "Ming's covering the perimeter. I'll get you there." But as they moved, the hallway ahead of them erupted in gunfire. Bolin shielded Marina and Hao Chao, firing back with lethal precision. "Change of plans," he said. "We'll go through the south wing." As they maneuvered through the safe house, Marina's calm under pressure became evident. When Bolin paused to clear a path, she noticed an attacker sneaking up behind him. Without hesitation, she grabbed a decorative vase from a nearby table and shattered it over the assailant's head, dropping him instantly. Bolin turned, his eyes widening. "Nice hit." Marina gave him a wry smile. "I've been paying attention." In the control room, Ming held the line against the attackers with the remaining security team. The enemy had anticipated their defenses, using drones to pinpoint weaknesses and explosives to create entry points. But Ming was relentless, his tactical mind working overtime to counter every move. "They're not here to kill you," Ming said through the comms to Bolin. "They're here for Hao Chao. He's the leverage they want." The realization sent a chill down Bolin's spine. "They won't touch him," he growled. "Not while I'm breathing." As they reached the panic room, another group of intruders appeared, cutting off their path. Bolin engaged them, his shots precise but outnumbered. Marina, holding Hao Chao tightly, spotted a side door leading to a service stairwell. "We'll go this way," she said, determination blazing in her eyes. "Marina, wait," Bolin started, but she was already moving, her instincts guiding her. Bolin followed, his trust in her growing with every step. They descended into the lower levels, but the attackers were relentless, closing in from multiple directions. When one cornered them near the basement, Marina used her training to disarm him, shoving him against the wall and kneeing him in the chest before Bolin delivered the finishing blow. "You're incredible," Bolin said, his voice filled with admiration despite the chaos. Marina glanced at him, her expression fierce. "We're not out yet." In the safe house's underground bunker, Bolin and Ming regrouped with Marina and Hao Chao. The attackers had breached nearly every level, their numbers overwhelming. "We can't hold them off much longer," Ming said, reloading his weapon. "They came prepared." Bolin glanced at Hao Chao, who clung to Marina, his tiny fists gripping her shirt. His son's innocent face steeled Bolin's resolve. "We're not giving up," Bolin said. "Not while we have something to fight for." Using the bunker's remaining resources, Ming triggered a countermeasure system, releasing tear gas throughout the upper levels. It bought them precious minutes to plan their escape. As the intruders regrouped, Bolin and Ming led Marina and Hao Chao through an emergency escape tunnel that exited into the forest surrounding the estate. The air was tense, every sound amplified in the darkness. When they emerged, a hidden vehicle waited for them. Ming drove while Bolin sat in the back with Marina and Hao Chao, his weapon at the ready. "We'll head to the secondary safe house," Ming said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "It's more secure." Bolin nodded, his arm around Marina. "We'll figure out who's behind this, and we'll make them pay." As the vehicle sped through the night, Bolin reflected on the attack. The enemy had been more organized, more resourceful than he'd anticipated. This wasn't just an attempt to destabilize him. It was a declaration of war. "You saved us," Bolin said quietly to Marina, his voice filled with emotion. "I couldn't have done this without you." Marina looked at him, her eyes fierce but tender. "We're in this together, Bolin. Always." Bolin's grip tightened around Hao Chao as he made a silent vow. "They won't stop until they've taken everything from me. But I'll stop them first." Bolin stood in the heart of the command room, the walls lined with screens displaying surveillance footage, maps, and dossiers. His team gathered around him, Ming, Marina, and a small group of loyal operatives. Each face was tense but resolute. They had prepared for this moment, but the stakes had never been higher. Bolin's voice was steady but filled with determination. "This isn't just about reclaiming what's ours anymore. It's about ending this once and for all. Lin Shuo has built her network on fear and manipulation, but we know her weaknesses, and tonight we use them." Ming, leaning over a map, pointed to key locations. "She's spread thin. Her operations depend on a handful of critical hubs: communications, logistics, and funding. We hit those simultaneously to cripple her, but we'll need precise timing and flawless execution." Marina stepped forward, her eyes blazing with determination. "We can't just cut her off. We need to expose her. If we bring her crimes to light, she won't have anywhere to hide." Bolin nodded. "Agreed. This is about more than defeating her. It's about making sure she can't rise again." As plans were finalized, a familiar figure entered the room. Leon's presence immediately drew attention, her poised demeanor and sharp gaze commanding respect. She carried a slim folder and placed it on the table with a quiet intensity. "This is everything I've been able to gather," Leon said, her voice calm but urgent. "Lin Shu's inner circle, her safe houses, even her escape routes. But there's something else you need to know." Bolin's brows furrowed. "What is it?" Leon hesitated, then said, "She's not just after power, Bolin. This is personal. Lin Shui blames you for Jiwan's downfall, yes, but it goes deeper than that. She believes your family's empire should have been hers. She thinks your father stole it from hers." Ming's eyes narrowed. "A vendetta fueled by generations." Bolin exhaled sharply, the weight of the revelation sinking in. "So this isn't just about revenge. It's about legacy." Marina placed a hand on Bolin's arm, grounding him. "Then we end it here, once and for all." The operation unfolded in 3 phases, each more dangerous than the last. Ming led a covert team to infiltrate Lin Shua's primary communications hub. The facility was heavily guarded, but Ming's team used precision and stealth to take out the guards silently. As Ming uploaded a virus to disable Lin Shua's network, an alarm blared. The team had been spotted. "We're exposed," one operative shouted. "Keep moving," Ming barked, holding off advancing guards while the virus uploaded. "We don't leave until it's done." As the virus completed its upload, Ming and his team fought their way out, and narrowly escaping an explosion set off by Lin Shui's desperate operatives. Marina took the lead in this phase, using her connections in Lagos to orchestrate a global freeze on Lin Shui's assets. Sitting in a secure location with her laptop, she coordinated with international banks and financial regulators. Lin Shui won't be able to pay her operatives, bribe officials, or fund her operations, Marina said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. By the time she realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. As Lin Shui's accounts were frozen one by one, Marina received a chilling message on her screen. "You're clever, Mrs. Howe. Let's see how long you can stay ahead." Marina's jaw tightened. "I'm not afraid of you," she muttered, redoubling her efforts. With Lin Shui's network crippled, Bolin led the charge on her final stronghold, a secluded estate hidden deep in the mountains. The team moved under the cover of darkness, their movements swift and coordinated. Inside, Lin Shui awaited them, her confidence unshaken despite the odds. She stood in the center of the grand hall, her operatives forming a protective circle around her. "So, the prodigal son returns," Lin Shui said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Did you really think you could erase me, Bolin? Your family's sins run too deep for that." Bolin stepped forward, his gun trained on her. "This ends tonight, Lin. You've caused enough destruction." Lin Shui's lips curled into a cold smile. "And you think you're the hero? Your father wasn't the saint you think he was. He took everything from my family. I'm just taking it back." Marina, standing at Bolin's side, spoke up. "Your fight isn't with Bolin. It's with your own greed. You've destroyed lives for your vendetta. That ends now." The confrontation erupted into chaos as Lin Shui's operatives attacked. Bolin, Ming, and their team engaged in a brutal fight, the air filled with the sounds of gunfire and shouted orders. Marina, though unarmed, used her wits to protect Hao Chao, who had been hidden in a secure location nearby. Bolin and Lin Shui faced off in a final tense standoff. Lin Shui lunged at Bolin, wielding a blade with precision, but Bolin's training and determination gave him the edge. Disarming her, he held her at gunpoint. "It's over," Bolin said, his voice steady. Lin Shui laughed bitterly. "You think you've won? You'll never escape your family's shadow. No matter what you build, it'll always be stained by their sins." Bolin's gaze hardened. "Then I'll rebuild it my way, without fear, without you." As law enforcement stormed the estate, Lin Shui was taken into custody, her reign of terror finally over. With Lin Shui defeated, Bolin's empire emerged stronger than ever. Marina's role as a strategist and partner solidified, their bond unbreakable. Ming, ever loyal, stood by Bolin's side, knowing they had overcome their greatest challenge yet. As the family stood together, Hao Chao cradled in Marina's arms, Bolin looked to the future with renewed hope. "This is just the beginning," Bolin said. "For us, for him." Marina smiled. "And we'll face whatever comes next, together." The grand hall was filled with dignitaries, journalists, and allies as Bolin stepped onto the stage. The reclaimed headquarters now bore his family's crest, a symbol of hope restored. The journey had been grueling, and the cost immeasurable, but this moment was his to claim. Bolin's voice was steady, though it carried the weight of the battles he had fought. For too long, this empire has been defined by shadows and betrayal. My parents built it with integrity, and their sacrifices will not be forgotten. Today, we begin a new chapter, one of transparency, justice, and unity. The crowd erupted into applause, but Bolin's gaze drifted to Marina, standing beside Ming at the edge of the stage. She held Hao Chao, their son squirming in her arms, oblivious to the significance of the moment. Bolin smiled faintly, his resolve deepening. He wasn't just fighting for his parents' legacy. He was building one for Hao Chao. As the applause died down, Bolin stepped off the stage, immediately joining Marina and Hao Chao. Cameras flashed as the world saw for the first time the unity of their family. Marina addressed a reporter who approached them. "This isn't just Bolin's victory. It's a victory for everyone who believes in a better future, and I'll be right by his side as we rebuild." Her words were met with cheers, solidifying her role as not just Bolin's wife, but a partner in his mission. She had fought alongside him, defied danger, and now stood as a symbol of resilience. Later that evening, as they walked through the gardens of the estate, Bolin turned to Marina. "You've done more than I could have ever asked. This wouldn't have been possible without you." Marina smiled, her hand resting on his arm. "We did this together, Bolin, and we'll keep doing it. For Hao Chao, for all of us." Despite their victory, the journey left scars, both visible and unseen. Ming, once unshakable, now carried a burden of guilt for every life lost along the way. He spoke less, his eyes often distant, though his loyalty to Bolin never wavered. Bolin himself struggled to reconcile the man he had become with the one he once was. The weight of his parents' sacrifices, the betrayals he had endured, and the dangers he had faced haunted him in quiet moments. One night, as he stood alone in his study, Marina found him staring at an old photograph of his parents. "Do you think they'd be proud?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "They'd be more than proud," Marina said, stepping behind him and wrapping her arms around his waist. "They'd see the man who fought for what they believed in, the man who's building something even greater." Hao Chao grew as the symbol of everything Bolin had fought to protect. In his son's laughter, Bolin found a reason to keep pushing forward. In his tiny, curious eyes, he saw the promise of a brighter future. One afternoon, Bolin sat with Hao Chao in the garden, watching as the boy toddled after a butterfly. Marina joined them, her laughter filling the air as Hao Chao stumbled but picked himself up, determined to keep going. "He's strong," Bolin said, his voice filled with pride. "He gets that from you," Marina replied, leaning her head against his shoulder. Bolin looked at her, his expression softening. "He gets it from both of us." The story didn't end with victory. It began anew. Bolin faced the monumental task of rebuilding an empire, scarred by corruption and betrayal. Marina became an integral part of the process, working alongside him to implement reforms and establish a legacy Hao Chao could one day inherit with pride. As they stood together on the balcony of their home, overlooking the city lights, Bolin spoke softly. "This isn't the life I imagined. It's harder, more dangerous, but it's ours." Marina smiled, her hand finding his. "And it's worth it." Bolin turned to her, his expression filled with determination. "No more shadows, no more fear. We'll build something that lasts, Marina. For Hao Chao, for us, for everyone who believed in us." Legacies aren't built in a day. They're forged in fire, tested by trials, and strengthened by love. This is only the beginning, the end.